Amstrad CPC means a lot to me. Will you come and see how I play Desi? If you're in love with retro gaming, come and join the book. And if you want a Friday foursome, watch him and you could. Novabug.
How you doing, everyone? Novabug here, or should I say Sir Bug? Well, I didn't call myself that, somebody else did. So this is a book review. I don't do book reviews often, do I? There's a couple on this channel, but hey, this is a book review, and it's a book review from one of my friends, or two of my friends, should I say. The Adventures of YellowBelly. So this is a book written by my friend and major and all-round great guy YellowBelly, aka Phil, and also a long-time viewer and also Bug Army member, Andrea as well. And there's Phil and Andrea on the front, adorning the front cover there. And the artwork done by Girl Afraid. If you're an avid Twitch viewer, you would have seen Girl Afraid on the Twitch. So, that aside, what is this about then? This book, let me give you a little bit of a backstory into this book. So essentially, I think it started with Andrea. And Andrea wrote a little tale about the fictitious character of Sir YellowBelly. And started to include people from the Amstrad community. People particularly from my audience and Zypho's audience. So the two Amstrading YouTubers, Twitchers kind of thing. And our shared viewership, and including the characters and turning them into characters in a fantasy setting, a sort of Lord of the Rings setting, medieval, you know, that kind of thing going on. And this was picked up on by YellowBelly, and thought this is really good. And we all read it. I read the original sort of pre-script, as it were, or draft, should we say? I don't know. And I really enjoyed it, and so then it turns so then Phil started writing another piece, and then they finally decided they were going to collaborate together to write an entire book out of this born idea, and then it spawned this very book, a self-published book. Phil self-published this out of his own pocket, so none of it was for profit. It was entirely done for the fun and the joy of it. Which I think is very wholesome and very great. Every money, all the money that anybody paid towards these were essentially just paying for the cost of getting them printed, essentially. So no profit was made. It was purely for enjoyment, purely for a bit of fun for everybody to enjoy, and it's funny. It's a really good book. I'm going to be brutally honest here. I am not going to say it's a magnum opus. I'm not going to say it's War and Peace. You know, it's not exactly J.R.R. Tolkien, but from two friends to incorporate a community and just to come out with this idea at random, and then also to fulfill it within a year as well, and have it published in print, I think is actually quite an achievement and should be respected and remarkable. And I've told them both this myself. And I'm honoured to be a part of this book as well, to be included as a character, as many of us in the Amstrad streaming community are. So, well, what's the book about? Well, I'm not going to tell you. I don't want to spoil it for anybody. Essentially, it's following the story of this fictitious character of YellowBelly, who's like your typical hero kind of thing, but he's got his certain ways, and there's very clever references to the real life people that the characters are based on in this. Everybody has got a reference to, well, nearly everybody has got a reference to how they behave in real life, what their certain personality quirks are, and they're reflected that slightly in certain characters. For instance, Phil, his off-colour jokes about women maybe are in there, you know. He's also anti-PC stuff is in there, which is great. I love them bits. and of course, general merriment at taking the piss of like generally cultural things that are going on in our lives today, which generally just deserve to be mocked. So there are little hints in there. It doesn't go heavy on that because it mainly remains true to the story, this fantasy story of warfare and of dragons, which was a surprise, and wolves and creatures and goblins and orcs and villages and peasants and armies and all that kind of good stuff that you get in these kind of stories. You know, Song of Ice and Fire and stuff like that. Lord of the Rings being a major thing, World of Warcraft, things like that. It's all kind of in that kind of setting, and of course based around the British Isles as well. But obviously everything's renamed. The land of the Red Dragon, for instance, is Wales, and the island of Giles is Ireland, of course. Francia is France, I believe. I think it is. So yes, it's all very funny and sort of like self-referencing, and there's lots of little digs in there and little hints towards the community and the Amstrad lore and retro gaming lore in general. And it's fun. It's a good fun. And if you know what you're looking for, if you know what you're going to read, well, not knowing what you're going to read, sorry, if you know what the gag is coming and you can read into the text, you'll be able to see some of the gags. There's lots of hidden gags in this. I do like hidden gags. I've read it 1.5 times now. I'm going through it a second time just to see if I can pick up anything that I missed before. But it is fun. It is a good laugh. As a story, the concept of the story is really good. It's really simple, but it's really good. I love there's a few twists in there. I don't really want to spoil it for you. I could say spoilers on this review video, couldn't I? No, I'm not going to do spoilers for you. But there are some twists in there. One part where YellowBelly disappears at one point. That's a surprise to find out who his family are. That's a nice surprise. And then you've got the character of Andrea going from this escapee. She's escaping basically from tyranny, and she discovers this whole world ahead of her that opens her up and turns into a tough old bird. It really does. And by the end of it, she's slicing goblins' heads off like the best of them, which is great. And there's redemption stories. There's several redemption stories in this. One particularly I like. I like the redemption story of Anna, essentially, and the manipulation of truth between the two kings. All this kind of stuff. It's got lots of tropes in there. They all work in their various ways. I would have personally had more naming with some of the villages. Some of the villages don't get names, which I feel is unfortunate. I think we could have played around with names a little bit more. There's some good playing around with names in it, like Kings, the capital of Zealandia, for example, and the names of some of the characters have been played around with. I like that. Particular highlights for me. I love the Bridget reference, which is it's basically a sort of magical spell thing, but Bridget the game on the Amstrad, reference my videos if you don't know, is basically played out in real life within the book, and that's quite a funny sequence of events with people falling into the freezing water. That's quite a funny series of events. You get to meet Minor Willie in this. Also, YellowBelly names him. That's quite a little amusing moment. There are amusing side gags as well, particularly with Medicum Lim, the character of Medicum Lim. You probably guess who that's based on. But there's a nice reference to the colours he's wearing, and it's a very in-jokey. You have to know the community members to know the joke. That's where maybe a criticism comes into this. If you are not properly sort of familiar with, say the people in real life, and the people on the streams, if you don't watch my streams and Zypho's streams all the time, like consistently, and get to know the people in the chat and the way they talk and the way they joke, then you probably won't grab the personality traits of some of the characters in this, and that is a shame. I guess that's obviously done for a reason. It's done for keeping the community sort of like a shout out to the community kind of thing. But it's for people, for layman's coming in and reading it, they're going to think, this is just plodding. What's the point in that reference? This doesn't make sense. I'm not saying the sequences don't make sense. They do make sense, but you will miss the gags. You will miss the jokes, the in-jokes. Which, there you go. It is what it is in that case. Other other things, they're all the positives. So basically, that's all the positives. It's a fantastic story. It's a lovely artwork on the front by Girl Afraid. Gemma, I think her real name is. Also a character in the book. And hopefully there will be a volume 2, because it ends on a cliffhanger. I like cliffhanger endings. How should we describe the structure of the story? So the structure of the story, it gets off to a kind of slowish start. There's a lot of descriptive things going on, quite a lot of exposition at the beginning of the book. I suppose that's what you would get with most books anyway. You do get that. It's quite heavy on the exposition right at the beginning, but as you get further through, it gets less and less and less and less and less, and that's good. This bit by the end, there's so much of the story crammed into this last part. Massive amounts of story crammed into the last part. It really is. Journey of it's a story of a travel, a journey, meeting new people, meeting different people, meeting old friends, all that kind of stuff. Criticisms. I hate to be critical of this because both Andrea and Phil are my friends. I consider them good friends as well, and I don't want to be critical of them, but I have to be. If I'm going to be a professional reviewer, I will try to be a professional reviewer, I've got to be critical of certain things. The structure of the story is sometimes difficult to follow due to the fact that paragraphs are not separated within the book. Now this is a major grammatical thing, especially when you're reading for consistency. So when there's time skips, time jumps, when the setting changes to a different place, there's no paragraph gap, there's no line break. So sometimes you got to go, hang on a minute, and read back and think, oh right, there's the line break, there's the time skip, right, back onto it. Now Phil told me this is because this was to keep the cost down, to pay to the number of pages in the book, which I can understand. Unfortunately, it does make for a slightly difficult read at certain points because of that. There's also some proofreading errors in bits of it. Capital letters are used when they shouldn't be used. And for some reason, the word thinking, as in thinking, every time it was printed in the latter half of the book, it is separated into thin king. So that's thin, and then a capital K, king, thin kin. Now, at first, I thought this might be an in-gag, but then it kept repeating itself, and every time the word thinking was said, it said thinkin, thin king, thin king, and I'm like, now I think this is a printing error. This is a processing error that's happened, because it seems to go on too much to be like an in-joke. Now, Phil and Andrew could correct me on this, and I could be completely wrong, and it could be an in-joke, and it's deliberately supposed to say thin king. I doubt it's supposed to do that though, and that is quite distracting as well that happens. I think a couple of the characters are a little bit underused. I would like to have been introduced to the other king earlier in the book, at least for one couple of paragraphs maybe, to sort of like get a grip on the character. I think, I mean, my character, I'm happy with the way my character's used. That's fine. I'm not going to sit here and blink on about, oh, I was underused. No, I was fine. I'd like to have had my village named, though. There are portions in it where I believe you meet a character, and you meet a character so fleeting. I think it was Avocet, the character of Avocet of Panier. The character meeting is quite fleeting. So then when he returns later in the book, you kind of, do I remember this? Where did he come from? And you kind of don't remember. And then that was a bit weird. So fleeting characters coming in and then disappearing really quickly. I guess it's trying to get people into the book. I get that. I get the idea. What else have I got to say? I think the structure of the writing is pretty solid. It's nice. It keeps you engaged. I mean, particularly the last half of the book. You can tell the learning process has gone on through this, because the last half of the book I felt really engaged with, and by the end of it, I'm like, I want to know what happens next. How are they going to get out of this one? I want to know what happens next. Is there any character shifts in it that are too dramatic for me? I like the character. I think the character development of the character of Lady Andrea is pretty much spot on, pretty bang on. The distrust in the king, in King Zypho to YellowBelly, felt a little bit off, because they make great points in the earlier portions in the book of how they've had a long relationship, a trusted friendship, and then all of a sudden the king throws this aside for this stranger character. I'm not going to say the names, but that felt a little bit off. I get what they were trying to do. They're trying to set up the sort of like distrust, manipulation angle. I get that, betrayal. I get that. But the way it was engineered into the story kind of threw me off. It was like, why would he do that? Why? There was no just cause for that, for the king to make this course of action. Maybe something else needed to happen. I would suggest maybe another trusted character would be a betrayal. To bring a later character into it that late on, and to be the linchpin to cause that betrayal, to cause the friction, was kind of a bit loose for me. It was a bit what's the word? I can't remember the phrase for putting something in But anyway, sorry, I've gone off tangent. If it was like a character that was established early in the book, for example, like they did with the character of Anna, the way they did the character of Anna was really good. Established early in the book, hints given in early in the book, and then there's a development, and then there's a redemption, and it's all good. And that the story of the character of Anna went through really, really well. But I would believe that the betrayal angle, the manipulation angle at the end, I felt could have been better with another character. Maybe we're familiar with, that we've been introduced as being great for some reason, but then finds out that they're the manipulator. That would have probably been a nice little twist for me. I'm not going to suggest what character you could have done that with. Maybe your ideas are there. Maybe it could have been my character. Who knows? I felt that we could have had a little bit more storyline with the Queen. That kind of was left hanging a little bit. There are little hints there, the left hanging. I'm assuming a lot more of that is going to happen in the second book. So that kind of portion of the story was a little bit tricky to sort of swallow. But that's really much of the criticism I've got, apart from the general little bit. Now and then there's spelling errors, obviously fine. Grammatical errors now and then, fine. And I've got the paragraph thing is quite annoying. You have to sort of reread parts. Obviously the proofreading part with the word thinking is there. These are minor things. For a first time effort writing a book, and a collaboration at that as well, and publishing, I think it's a terrific effort, and I can't wait. I'm sure volume 2 will be refined. The story will be sort of like made a lot more succinct in places to make it flow a little bit smoother. I'm not saying this doesn't. Like I said, the majority of the storylines in this and the side storylines flow really well and they work really well. It's just a few things, like I've already mentioned, that feel a little bit off and feel a little bit too forced and just put in there we've got to make this happen. How are we going to make this happen? Okay, right, fair enough. I'm really sorry, Andrew and Phil. I'm trying not to be nasty, but I've got to be a critic. So don't shoot me, don't hate me. Because the majority of this I really enjoyed. I really did. I love the story. I love the ideas in it. I love the comedy. The comedy makes it for me. The comedy is really good. The self-referencing to the abstract community, the retro gaming community, the fact that my character gets a bit angry at some point and throws it. That's a bit like me, isn't it? Yeah, it's good. It's really good. I really enjoyed it. It was well worth it. Thank you for Sam for gifting this to me. Love the character of Sam, by the way, in this. Really good. And I love the jokes. I love the jokes with Sam. I was laughing. I was laughing at the medicine that the name of the medicine that YellowBelly gave to Sam. I'm not gonna tell you because it's pretty good. It's a dirty joke, basically. It's a dirty joke, but it's just. You read it and then you go, oh, and there's the groan. That was funny. Yeah, it's a really good effort. I love it. It's going to be pride of place in my book collection. That two of my friends wrote this, and they conceived this, you know, within a year, came up with the idea and got it to print. That's amazing. I want to see the next volume to print as well. There's going to be a lot of hurdles, of course, for that. But if anybody I would great to be a part of a fundraiser, for example, to see part 2 of this, because I kind of want to see where the story goes. I really do, and the way things develop. So apart from the criticisms that I do have about it, it's very good. It's very good. It's very enjoyable. I took my time reading it. I wanted to savour it, and great one, guys. Just really good stuff. And I'm sure everybody else that has a copy of this book will enjoy it just as much as I did. And they might pick up on the little the little hiccups that I did as well. I just actually hiccup there for comic effect. Wasn't very comical, was it? No. Thank you for watching this review of The Adventures of YellowBelly by Phil Saniford. Saniford? Get it right! Phil, yes, I said it right the first time. And Andrea Wyatt. Sorry. Very professional review here from Sir Bug of the Bug Army. Phil Marshall of the Bug Army. Buy the merch. Novabug out.
Hey, Novabug here. I do hope you enjoyed this video. Please support the channel by liking and commenting, and of course subscribing if you haven't already done. If you would like to support me further, please consider joining my Bug Army via Patreon. And also don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Parler, BitChute and Twitch. And a salute to my Bug Army generals Sam M, Sweet Nanak, Pete Walker and Craig Harrison. Thank you everyone for supporting me. Novabug out.